Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the new normal. I'm Matt Meehan alongside Steve Perota and Zena from ADP. Today, we're going to start talking a little bit about what you have to look out for if you've gotten a PPP loan in order to get it forgiven. So with that being said, Steve, why don't you introduce yourself? Zena, why don't you go for it as well?
Hey everybody, I'm Steve Perota from Shield Advisory Group. Today we have a special guest, Zena from ADP. Zena and I have worked together for, I think, around 5 or 6 years now, which is great. So Zena, why don't you talk to us a little bit about ADP, what your role is there, how you help clients out, some basic services, and then we're going to get right into some PPP questions and go from there.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Zena. I've been with ADP for about 6 years now. Like Steve said, I've worked with him and his accounting firm. So I specifically work with accounting firms and all their clients. I've helped with payroll and HR solutions, along with some other insurance services like health insurance, retirement plans, workers' compensation. And today I'd like to talk about how ADP has been helping small businesses and mid-sized businesses with PPP and some of the other coronavirus care aid loan forgiveness acts, and how we've benefited businesses with some of our technology. So I'll hand it back over to Matt.
Hey, thanks, Zena. We appreciate that. So guys, we've been dealing with ADP for a very long time. They have some of the most cutting edge technology that's out there in regards to payroll systems and processes, right? And it's very important in this time right now that you have all your ducks in a row when it's important. It's very important to get, your loans forgiven with this PPP program. Me and Steve had a lot of clients that came to us and they really didn't have any payroll provider in place. And it was a little bit frustrating. And I'll let Steve talk to that more from an accountant's point of view.
Sure, absolutely. So a lot of our small business clients and medium-sized clients just were not ready for this. Nobody was really ready for this. This was something that just came about very quickly. Everybody was in a rush to get their applications in. And, luckily, clients that have ADP already just had the technology in place to print out all the reports that were really needed for this application. And that's really what it came down to, is organization. And really, the first round of PPP loans, a lot of people just didn't get because they weren't ready. They didn't get the applications in on time. So a lot of the clients that had all their ducks in a row had really, just a better opportunity to get the money quickly and put that money to work. So Zen, I'm gonna ask you a quick question, like what were you finding with your clients, like coming to you? Were they just disorganized? Were they wondering how you guys can help? And what were some of the things that they came to you with initially when this whole pandemic happened and the PPP loan came out?
Yeah, Steve, exactly what you said before. And I don't think any small business or even mid-sized businesses were prepared for a financial crisis like this. So I found that a lot of my clients were financially fragile and unprepared. Mm-hmm. So they weren't able to make rent payments on time, even pay their employees, especially from, on average, since January, most small businesses reduced active employees by 39%, hospitality by exceeding 50%. So in a time like that, a lot of businesses were either having major layoffs or closures, and since they didn't foresee a crisis like this, being able to reopen. So a lot of businesses were coming to me because now they're relying on the PPP loans. And how can we help is, we really adapted our system for PPP and also to track, like the Social Security tax deferral. We've really evolved with the time and immediately came up with a program on our site to be completely geared towards PPP loan forgiveness, frequently asked questions. Again, we have a line dedicated, a hotline for any frequently asked questions for the loan forgiveness. So that's really how we're helping our employees, our clients and small businesses. Even our system, we have reports readily available. That way they can go to their bank. That's how they can get the loans forgiven.
So yeah, those reports I know has helped us out tremendously because we actually helped facilitate a ton of PPP loans to get our clients money through the banks. And there were a lot of brokers out there, a lot of other accountants that were trying to do it, but there was a lot of information that was coming out sporadically. And you guys did a great job of putting it all in one place. And it actually helped us tremendously to have our clients prepared to have the money forgiven, because you guys did have a centralized solution and you were up to date on all the new reports that were coming out.
Yeah, the important part is the technology I think that you guys have is just bar none to everybody else in the industry. I think that, that plays a big role in getting the stuff that we need, as soon as you can to help people get the money, because, a lot of these small firms, they even do payroll themselves. They couldn't produce the reports that they needed, so I think technology is just a major role in this, and payroll reporting and the ease of doing it. So I think that you guys at ADP did a fantastic job in getting these reports, and really looking forward to the loan forgiveness aspect of it too, which I think you guys are really, are really organized with that and have everything ready to go when the time comes, which I believe is shortly.
Hey, Zen, let me ask you a question. What size employer usually do you guys work with, right? Because I know we have a lot of smaller companies that have 10 employees or less. Do you guys work with smaller employers? Because they try to do most of their bookkeeping in-house. And in times like this, I think a lot of people are starting to realize they really need a true payroll provider.
Yeah, I think it's a common misconception that ADP only works with larger size businesses. I actually work in the small business sector, so 1 to 50 employees, but 1 to 10 employees is my sweet spot. And then I have a partner, Natalie, who handles over 50 employees up to 1,000 employees. So we really do have different solutions and platforms that we customize to businesses. So like you said, so a 1 to 10 employee size business, we have a platform specifically for them and specific services that would be more favorable to a business like that to help them.
Yeah, because Steve, you can contest to this too. Every business has a unique story, right? Even before we partnered up and we founded Shield Advisory Group, Steve, you've been doing accounting for, I don't know, how many years?
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years. And what do you find the number one reason is that most people don't use a payroll provider?
It's really to save money, but in the long run, I think, they end up spending more internal time, more of their time. I think the important thing is, I always tell my clients that, you really have to utilize your time wisely. If you factor in the man hours that go into these things and, the digitization of, ADP's technology to get the payroll run is so quick. I mean, most small businesses under 10 employees could do their payroll in about 15 minutes per payroll period, which is nothing compared to doing it manually or saying the information to your accountant and doing it, I mean, in today's world, you need to get stuff done, fast, efficiently. And you don't want something that's cost prohibitive. And I don't think that, having a payroll company doing the service for you really is going to be, is bad financial decision. I think it's great. And not only that, when you have a payroll tax notice, or if you have an issue that comes up, I think that's the beauty of it. You have these people as a partner, a payroll partner to your firm at your fingertips. And I think that's really important. And again, I just can't reiterate the technology that ADP provides. I think it's great. And I think it's something that, it's just like you said, the new normal, and people are going to really have to think about this moving forward, especially, there's, I believe, maybe another round of PPP funding coming. We want to be prepared. Small businesses, medium-sized businesses want to be able to, have the capability to apply for these things, put the money to work, and in the future, not have, run around to get things done.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very important to show how the money was spent, and it was spent properly in order to be forgiven. Last thing you want to, a lot of people went out there telling people, don't worry, the loans are going to be forgiven. Well, the truth of the matter is they're not going to be forgiven unless you have the reports to back it up and you can actually show where the money was spent. And ADP's technology has actually helped our clients out a lot, because with the touch and the click of a button, we can pull all the reports for them and we can help and get that money forgiven, right away. And it's going to be even more important with the next round of PPP funding that we're hearing is going to be coming out. Steve, can you talk a little bit more about how and what it takes in order to have the loans forgiven for some people who are just not unsure right now?
Sure, absolutely. Well, there's two forms. There's a short form and a long form to get it forgiven. A couple of things they look at is your employee count from prior to getting the loan, which is really January, February. going back to look at the employee count. You don't really, you want to be aware of people's salaries, that they haven't decreased a certain percentage. And you want to make sure the employee count is where it was at. Now, the good thing is that the PPP loans have extended their time period to use the money from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. So you have quite some time to use this money, which a lot of people that got the money, a couple of months ago still have a pretty good timeline. So Zena, actually, why don't you tell us about the ease of the forgiveness? I think ADP was actually filling out some of the application for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have, like I mentioned before, we have a line dedicated to help our clients fill out the forms and to get that forgiveness. And we have all of that on their actual portal for their payroll to pull the reports needed, that way to make it easily accessible and user-friendly.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So,
and also our site too for the frequently asked questions for the loan forgiveness. It really does take you step by step on how to get that forgiveness.
Right. And that line, so would somebody speak with their ADP rep? I mean, I know our clients come to us first and we facilitate everything for them. We do a lot of business with you guys, but even if somebody doesn't work with us, they can still go to ADP and they could have their own rep to speak to, just to clarify.
Yeah. Exactly. So as a partner of Steve's, for instance, if he has clients that are not with ADP, they could still call me directly and I can help direct them on to whether it be some of our resources to our site or even like a demo to show them what it would look like on our system.
Right.
So a lot of what we have to offer isn't just for ADP clients, but to help our partners clients as well.
Absolutely. And you guys have been, a tremendous resource for us because, our motivation here is, look, I was in the funding industry for a long time. Steve handled bookkeeping, accounting, and consulting across the board. We also have some very strategic partners on the team as well that aren't here with us today. But our focus for a long time, and my focus was just writing people and getting people the money that they need. And I think a lot of people have realized that they need just more than a check, right? We can get them the check, that's fine, but what happens next, right? They need the resources that larger corporations have. And I think ADP is hands down by far one of the best out there to help smaller businesses get these resources, right? A lot of small business owners out there, they started their business because, we have some contractors because they know how to build a house. That's what they love. When the world shut down, they didn't have the resources to make a phone call, to find out exactly how are they going to get the money, right? And more importantly, what do I need to do to make sure I don't have to pay this money back, right? And that's why ADP is a great place. Steve, can you talk a little bit more to the point of how more in depth you've worked with ADP in the past and some of our clients are doing right now? Because it's more than just payroll. ADP's really adapted over the last several years to become, a very good hub for small businesses in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the big thing is too, is you think about payroll taxes, but there's also payroll insurance, workers' comp and things like that. And, the beauty of it is, ADP really handles all of that stuff. So, when you're dealing with, workers' comp, some of you might know out there, you got some letters from the Department of State saying, the Department of Labor saying that you basically are not compliant with your workers' comp and there's huge penalties, $10,000, $25,000 of penalties. Well, that's the beauty of it. ADP handles that as well. They work internally with your company and they'll set up workers' comp insurance for you just to make sure that you're covered during the period. They also have a great program. It's a pay by pay. So there's no year-end audit. And they basically just, as you have more payroll, they take out more workers' comp insurance as your payroll grows. So there's no year-end audit. And again, you have to pay to your accountant for that time, of sitting down with the auditor, whereas, ADP has it all done internally. So just another great cost savings that they have there. So, and again, I think another webinar that we're doing is going to the benefits factor, PEO services and other stuff that they do. But, you got to look to them as, the payroll partner. And that's really what it's a big role for your business, HR solutions, things like that, that you don't, think about or that you're doing internally, you're spending money on. Look, in today's world, while you're coming to us, we're trying to help you save money. We're trying to figure out a more efficient manner to do business. In this virtual world, we need to outsource more. And that's kind of what we're here to do and work with the great partners like Zena and ADP to really help you in your business. So yeah, just go back to Zena. I mean, what do you find your clients are interested in? I mean, I think, is the payroll insurance something that you guys can help clients with? And also, is there a savings there using you guys, or what's the benefit, I guess, of going to ADP for that?
Yeah, definitely. So going off of what you just said too, exactly, you hit the nail on the head with HR, outsourcing HR and the workers' comp. So I'll touch on both of those. So for instance, outsourced HR, if you were to hire someone for a small business, that position could cost upwards of $60,000 a salary position. Having an outsourced HR through ADP, our HR has helped develop business continuity plans regarding like working from home, illness, expectations, benefit management, and communication from, employers to their employees through technology during this unprecedented time, and being able to save that amount. Like small businesses don't need an HR director, but having our HR support and having our HR professionals one call away, and it's not like a 1-800 number, having that support, especially during a time like this, is something that small businesses, I think, have realized that they've needed, that has been missing. And even like workers' compensation, a lot of businesses that were maybe interested in before in this service that we have offered are interested now because they need that lump sum deposit back that they put up for workers' compensation. We work as the broker of record, so we work with all the major carriers, and a lot of times, especially in New York State, we can save money on their policy. And then instead of them paying that lump sum deposit, they pay as you go. So if they're a biweekly payroll, then they're just paying a small premium, and we've integrated the two. That way, like you mentioned, at the end of the year, it's constantly recalculating. That way it alleviates the audit. And the way that I like to explain it, to just dumb it down, is why would you pay for gas up front for the entire year when driving, whereas you don't know how much gas you're going to need? So that's kind of how the pay-by-pay works, is you're paying as you go. Yeah. And when you do sign up for our pay-by-pay, our program, you get that deposit back. And a lot of times businesses are in need of that financial support right now.
Especially these days,
exactly.
Cash flow is everything, right, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Every dollar counts, and you guys, you make a lot of valid points over here, and it's really necessary these days for somebody to have a team behind them and not try to do everything on their own, right? And I think ADP and Shield Advisor Group, us together, we work really well. And, if anybody needs any help, please feel free to reach out to me, Steve, or Zena. We would help you in any way we can. Steve, you made a good point before. You started talking about payroll, workers' compensation, taxes, but there's a lot of noise lately going on about this new payroll tax cut that's going about, the president's talking about. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that? What it would look like from an employee's point of view, and what, more importantly, it would look like from an employer's point of view?
Sure. Right now it's a deferral. There were talks, we have an election year. Obviously it's a big year for our country right now. And depending on what goes on, there may be some changes, as we know, but under the current president, he's said that this is just quite a deferral and perhaps a forgiveness later on. So, people have to be aware of that. I believe it's for anybody making, I think it's $4,000 or less every 2 weeks or so. I have to double check that. Zena, maybe you can correct me on that. Basically, if it has to get repaid, people have to understand in, 2021, their paychecks might be lower, right? Because you got to repay that. Now, as of right now, it's a deferral. So people, I think, don't necessarily have to elect into it. They can, but again, you have to be under the threshold of what you're currently making. So at the end of the day, it's really something that you have to plan for. And look, if people are, working hard for their paychecks, and next year all of a sudden, their paychecks lower, you got to budget for that. And also, as you mentioned, it's an HR, it's a payroll nightmare, right? So it's something that I would 100% recommend using a payroll company to handle this for you. They're going to handle it. They're going to track it. They're going to know exactly what's going on. The technology is fantastic. I can't imagine any small business, I don't care if you have 2 employees, really tracking this and understanding what the payback would be, in 2021, if and when it gets paid back. So it's just something that you don't leave internally to do. You're going to end up spending more time as a business owner or more of your staff's time when you guys could be out making money and doing things for your business. I mean, again, it's penny wise and dollar foolish type mentality. It's just something that you want to outsource, you want to track, and you want to make sure it's correct. If you don't pay these payroll taxes back, you can get in trouble for that. So you want to make sure it's tracked, and you want to make sure it's done right. So Zena, actually, why don't you talk a little bit about if ADP is handling that currently, how they're handling it, and how the technology is something that you guys would recommend.
Yeah, so on our payroll system on Run, there's actually a notification that now pops up that lets you know about employers about the Social Security tax deferral and gives the option to whether or not you want to participate or be exempt from it. So you can actually push a button and through there it would exempt you from it.
That's awesome. I think, it's a very big thing. There's a lot of misinformation that's been going around, right? And a lot of people are so busy, especially business owners. I know I'm guilty of it, right? Is we just read the headlines sometimes and everything sounds great in the headline, but really the devil's in the details with all of these loans. And, I had tons and tons of small business owners calling me up. How do I get that grant money? It's free money. How do I get that? No, it's not a grant, right? So, that we saw this, Steve, with the EIDL money. We saw it with the PPP money that small business owners got. More importantly, Steve, we could talk about this a little bit more. This money has to be used for specific purposes, right? Because a lot of people can get in a lot of trouble, which we've already seen, if you're using the money that the government lent you outside of your business, right? Steve, why don't you just break down the PPP of what it could be used for, right? So everybody knows that they're on the right track right now.
Sure, absolutely. So really payroll related, payroll tax, payroll benefits. And again, the important thing I think to understand for the forgiveness is, how many employees you did have on payroll at the time when you took the loan and then subsequent to taking the loan. So, again, you don't want to take the PPP money and go buy a new Ferrari or yacht and stuff you hear in the news that's going on, which is quite crazy. And basically, you're going to have to report that back on the loan forgiveness application. So some of the reports that ADP actually provides is they actually pull the employee count and they basically put that on the application right for you, which is fantastic. So it's something you don't really have to do. You want to make this really seamless. A lot of the clients are gonna apply or going to be able to use the EZ form, which is like a one-page form, not specifying too much detail. So yes, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to take the PPP money and spend it on something else. If you don't get the loan forgiven, it turns into a term loan, and you'll have to repay it. I believe it's a 1% loan over. I think we're talking about 2 or possibly 5 years of a repayment term, which is still actually a pretty good loan. So the worst case scenario, let's say you had 10 employees, and you had to lay off 5, and you could only hire back 2. You're going to have some extra money left over. There is, in fact, some money you can use for rent, utilities, and some other stuff like that. But given that you don't use all that money, because payroll is really probably one of the biggest expenses a company has. So a lot of companies actually got a lot of money, but can't utilize it. And, they may not have rent anymore because their lease is up. They may not have the utilities anymore. So they have to really just use it on payroll. But again, tracking is just super important. I can't say that enough. Being an accountant, that's all we do is track things. And having the technology behind us is going to be easier because, again, as a small business owner myself, we just don't have the time in the day to track all these things. We rely on, the technologies and our partners to really handle it for us. So, yeah.
Anything you want to add on that, Zena?
Yeah, just going off that, everyone I feel like has questions about PPP. So we were getting thousands and thousands of calls, in the first 2 weeks of us launching our PPP site, the PPP compliance, we received over 90,000 views in just 2 weeks. one of the top Google's most searched during that time.
It doesn't is that a payroll pay 1 out of every 6 Americans or something like that?
Yeah, so we pay 1 in every 6 Americans. So obviously ADP, everyone was turning to when it comes to payroll, specifically PPP. And whether there were clients or not, we actually, in the first 2 weeks, answered and serviced successfully over 100,000 calls that had questions about specifically just PPP.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, you guys did great. You handled everything perfectly, in my opinion, because it was such a chaotic time and nobody knew what was going on. As I said, there were bits and drips and drabs of information coming out, which some people thought was true at one point, but then it turned out not to be. And I think it's even more important right now because we're probably going to get another round of PPP, right? So we have to account not just for the first round, but the second round. And I'm sure there's going to be more fine print in the next round. So we all have to make sure that we're prepared. I know, one question that we got a lot was, if I had an employee and I laid him off and then he didn't come back to work and I hired another employee in his place because he just wanted to collect unemployment, did that count? Right? Steve, I can let you answer that for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a couple of things you really have to go through the loan forgiveness document, the stipulations that the SBA came out with. But, more or less, if you had an employee that elected to not work less hours, that wouldn't disqualify it. If you would replace them, again, that would still keep up the employee count. There's a lot of fine print in there. So we definitely want to take a look at that and make sure that you comply. And again, ADP is tracking this. They track the employee counts. So if you do rehire somebody, they'll mark it off. And again, they have to be rehired and utilize the PPP money within that time period. If you hired someone for a week or so, that doesn't bring your employee count back up to where it needs to be. And then that's it. Like you'd have to make sure you pay them. Also people, not thinking about, because a lot of, during, I guess, February and March, people were just cutting people's salary, cutting their employees' salaries. You'd have to bring that salary back up, which I think a lot of employees were happy about. It's the payroll protection program. Really, it's to protect the employees that you had, keep them paid. And the goal was, to not overwhelm, unemployment, which has been overwhelmed, I think, up to this period. So that was really another goal, is to keep people employed. But, look, the challenges that I know Zena has a lot of experience with, hospitality, restaurant, and, restaurants just, they couldn't really hire these people back, unfortunately. I mean, they're just allowing now in some of the major cities, in-house dining, which it's been very difficult for restaurant owners, to hire these people back. So, we also have to think about, Matt, is that not everybody's going to have the loan forgiven. There's people that are not going to be able to utilize all this stuff. It's going to convert, and again, you want to just be aware of that and be aware that maybe a monthly payment for this. So it's not a definite thing. The SBA is still going back with the forgiveness rules, but of the final ruling, but it's, some of the loans may not all be forgiven. So we just have to keep that in the back of our mind as well. And we hope that your business is successful and gets it 100% forgiven. So we don't have to worry about it. And then just one last thing I'll lead on that is that, if you have payroll expense on your books and your loan is forgiven, you can't take the expense as well, right? So the expense gets offset. So you think about that, now I'm doing third quarter estimates for clients and their small businesses, they basically have to factor in that if they are forgiven, and that's a big dollar amount, that's going to, increase their income if they took that as an expense, right? So that's something that businesses need to plan for.
Exactly. And are you guys doing that over at ADP, helping them take that into account, Zena?
Yeah, I think right now too, a lot of businesses were struggling with even finding eligibility to get this loan forgiven. And at ADP, that's not one of the worries. Here, we provide all the resources needed, all of the reports like Steve mentioned. But now's the time to look at ADP, because if there are a second round of loan forgiveness, then we're not going to be able to help backtrack it. So now's the time to look at ADP. That way we can help businesses focusing on reopening and rehiring and getting back on their feet rather than scrambling to get the loan forgiven.
Absolutely. Zena, I mean, if any of you out there have struggled to get the right documentation, now's the time to really look at a new payroll provider. I think really now is a wake-up call for a lot of small businesses, and see how streamlined it, that it was for a lot of clients that Matt and I have worked with, a lot of the clients that Zen has worked with. The process is just so streamlined. So if you guys have struggled with getting this initial PPP application, even or the forgiveness for that matter, which is starting very soon, you really need to consider changing your provider, or maybe even getting a provider. Maybe you do it in-house. So now is definitely the time. Now's the time to kind of look at.
As a matter of fact, Steve, ADP was gracious enough to give us an awesome offer for our clients or anybody out there listening to this. If you guys have any questions, you can get in touch with Zena directly. You can come to me, come to Steve. ADP actually said they're going to go out and they're going to help our clients because we do a lot of business with them. Even if you guys are just watching this webinar right now, we have some pretty good added bonuses for you guys as well, right? If you work through me or Steve. But again, at the end of the day, that's not the concern here. The concern here is to make sure you guys have the proper paperwork in place to get everything done. And I think ADP personally has the best technology out there. I want to thank Zena. I want to thank Steve for their time today. We're just about out of time right now. Guys, do you have any last thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, I just want to thank you again for your time. I'm really happy to help any businesses. I have the experience, especially during this unprecedented time. So please feel free to give me a call if you have any questions, or if you'd like to consider ADP as one of your vendors.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Zena. It's been great. And if you guys have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us as well. I mean, we're here to help, and as is Zena, and to make your lives easier as business owners.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. And we appreciate you guys watching our webinar on the next normal. We'll be back with you guys with a couple more webinars from ADP and a couple more of our preferred partners moving forward. Thanks again, everybody. Bye.
Take care.
Okay.